I am joined today by somebody who is actually a really good friend of mine. So this is a bit of a chat between some mates, so you're welcome. Annabel and I met probably over 10 years ago now in cybersecurity because of the industry that we're in. And so I will leave her to do all of the introductions as to why she's here today and what we're going to be talking about. But ultimately, the reason why we do these things and why I brought Annabel to this and why we're doing this chat is because it's all a bit tech, isn't it, sometimes? And so it's all about people in my eyes. And so it's nice to actually hear some viewpoints from Annabel and certainly the experience she's had in the cyber industry. So one of the things that I always ask when I have people on certain podcasts that I've done and I'm interested in generally is where have they come from? Most people will fall into the tech industry. So Annabel, welcome.
Thank you. Can I just say, when you asked me for a fireside chat, I had in mind we'd be in a pub with a bottle of Malbec and a roaring fire, so I had quite this in mind. But thanks for having me. It's really nice to be here. So how did I get into tech? I probably know quite a few in the room, so I don't want to bore everybody. But very quickly, I fell into tech completely by accident. I have a degree in English. I did my dissertation on Jane Austen, which is about as far removed from cybersecurity as you can possibly get, although there are probably some themes that you could probably pick out. I got my first job in telesales for a cybersecurity company. It was in the mid-90s when the internet security industry was just starting to boom in the UK. And I thought I'd do it for a little while until I got a proper job. And then 25 years later, basically, I was still in the industry because I loved it. I was really fascinated by the industry. It's fast-paced, it moves quickly. And I kind of thought actually it was an opportunity to help people. So back in the mid-90s, we were doing a lot of education around the threats and being able to go into businesses and talk to them about what they needed and to help really problem solve. And that's the thing that kind of captivated me. So I ended up founding and leading businesses in the industry for the last 20 years. Most latterly, was chief exec of a cybersecurity company for 8 years. And I stepped down from that early on this year. So yeah, into a new venture.
So the Lamplight, what's all that about?
Yeah, it confuses a lot of people. The business that I'm doing now is part and parcel of my experience in the industry for the last couple of years, certainly in my experience running a business. One of the most rewarding things that I've done over the last couple of years is some of the leadership development work and the cultural transformation work that we did within Sapphire. And I saw what a huge shift and difference it makes, not only, I think, in terms of individuals, but also in terms of the impact of the organisation and how well we were doing and operational efficiencies and things like that, which were a byproduct of doing much more investment in the team, how the team dynamic worked, looking at the culture. And I saw it made a real shift in terms of people's engagement, us being able to retain staff, attract people. And also, actually, I saw it making a difference in people's lives outside of work, actually. And so it was the bit that kind of I was getting the most of out of the role I was doing. So I decided I've got about a third of my career still left, which is a bit of a depressing thought in some ways, but actually, what do I want to do for the rest of my career? And actually, it was really focusing on that, really to help other businesses who are interested in that, and not everyone is. So this might not be applicable to some of you in the room who aren't, but good opportunity to pick up your email. But really, for those of you who, for businesses who are, basically, it was. I think a lot of businesses are finding it really difficult to navigate what is now quite a polarized world out there. And they're finding it difficult to understand how you basically attract staff, how you keep people engaged, how you do conflict resolution well, and how really we develop leaders. And so that's where I decided I was going to focus my time and energy. So the Lamplight is partly because you might pick up a little lilt. I'm from Wales, I'm from South Wales, so if you can hear a little accent, that's what it is. So that makes me legally required to love 3 things. That's Tom Jones, singing and rugby, not necessarily in that order. And I don't want to talk to any of you about World Cup afterwards either. So I've got mining heritage in my family. So a lot of my family were either coal miners or slate miners or copper miners. And It occurred to me that mining lamps, which I have on my hearth, I've had it for years and years, they're designed to basically cast a light in safe environments. And so what I wanted to do was help organizations to basically create safe environments, psychological safety, to be able to allow the organization and individuals to shine in it. So it kind of, those two things collided together and I came up with the Lamplight. So it's a bit of a mouthful, but hey.
Hey, it's better than just distribution technology, Distology, boom. That easy. So thank you. So the theme of our year, and I think a lot of companies will have themes for their years, ours was challenge. I think we've all experienced it quite a challenge this last year. We certainly have financially. I think a lot of businesses have. We can't escape it, let's be honest. It's shit out there. But we are talking about challenging ourselves, challenging each other, challenging the norm, or whatever that norm is. That's changing as well all the time. So what inspired you to challenge yourself? Because you touched a little bit upon what you saw with the problems. So when you worked in Sapphire and as the CEO in your career. But really, what was the main catalyst for that to actually jump into, right now I need to go out there and throw myself into something that's on my own and go and help other businesses? What was the main catalyst?
I think it's a notion of people. So people, I know it's a real cliche thing to say, and lots of people say, and people are the most important part of our business, and people are at the heart of what we do and all of these things. But actually, really making that a thing and making that true is actually quite often really hard when you're also focused on profitability and growing a business. And I've been involved in quite a few businesses, and I know, I've been awake in the middle of the night worrying about cash flow and profit levels and all sorts of stuff. So it's very difficult to focus on that. But I think it's the one thing that people within an organization are the one thing that can make a huge difference. And I think people have really good intentions out there in terms of how you develop people, how you grow the organization, how you, like I say, how you keep people engaged, how you attract staff. And there are things that I've learned over the last couple of years through focus on organizational design and organizational psychology and neuroscience and inclusive leadership. And I've done a lot of studying. I'm just a voracious kind of self-learner. I love throwing myself into new things I haven't done before, particularly data-based, behavioral, science-based things that actually can really shift and make a change within an organization. And I think that was the thing, really, that I saw in practice then within my own organization when I was running it, that were really making big changes. And I thought, God, I wish I'd known this. I wish I'd known this 20 years ago when I was starting businesses. And so to have the opportunity to go and talk to other people about this and to help, because cybersecurity industry has its challenges. We have challenges in terms of everyone talks about the skills shortage, about attracting, about keeping, and it's a real problem. And as a business owner, if you want to take the fluffy, soft people thing off, because that doesn't particularly, resonate with you. Actually, this is a business issue. It's an economic issue. The UK at the moment is the worst performing nation of the G7 in terms of productivity at the moment. A third of people, there was a new CMI survey that came out a couple of weeks ago. A third of people have left jobs because of poor management in the last year. Half of all those surveys said they're going to leave their jobs in the next 12 months. So actually, it's our jobs as leaders to do something about that, and having the want to do it and being able to know what to do and do that effectively and as cheaply as you can is the kind of, and there are things you can do that, based in science and organizational psychology that makes a huge difference to how engaged people are. So if we can increase productivity within our businesses, and at the end of the day, I don't know, what size organizations are in the room, but 65% of the UK economy comes from SMEs. So, that's a lot of businesses out there who need to make sure that they are making more profitable, are more effective. But actually people are at the heart of that. And in most businesses, you'll find that everyone will have a handle on cash flow. Everyone will have a handle on customer experience. Everyone will have a handle on how their products are doing, how their supply chain is doing. But actually, very few organizations have a handle on how the people in that organization really feel and how you can make a difference to them. And isn't that a magical thing? If you can unlock that, as well as all the other amazing stuff you're doing, then that makes your business future-proof to attract new talent, new generations, as well as actually trying to navigate, we're won't be too long before we're coming up to dealing with the 100-year-old life. And actually, we'll be working for much longer, and we'll have managers who are trying to manage people much older than them, and navigating the changes about how that goes. So leadership is really, really, really important. And the other reason, sorry, I know we've only got 25 minutes.
Making my life really easy. Carry on.
Is because actually there's more pressure, I think, on businesses, and there's more pressure on leadership now than there ever has been. I don't know if any of you follow the Edelman Trust Barometer. So Edelman release a report every year, and it's on trust. And they release it at the beginning of the year, and so they've been releasing this report, I think, for 22, 23 years. And for the last couple of years, consistently, business is the only institution that is trusted by the UK public. Government is not, media is not, NGOs are not. Business is rated as ethical and also competent. In the last couple of years, it's dropped down a little bit in competency, but that to me is quite something. And in some of the political work that I'm doing now, actually business is being called in to engage with the political parties in terms of how business can take some of the lessons that we've done and take that to political parties to impact and change and hold government accountable to some of the things that they should be doing. And with all the stories in the press over the last couple of weeks, we don't need to kind of pull some of that stuff out. But, leadership or lack thereof, whichever your political sway is. So there is an onus on that. There is an onus on CEOs. People are expecting CEOs to be more involved in the well-being of their staff. So this isn't going away, basically, is what I'm trying to say. But wouldn't it be great if there were more people out there who are helping businesses who have the right intentions to do the better things that lead to actually better outcomes, more profitability and growth? And that's good for everybody.
Wow, there's a lot in there. And I think it resonates, certainly with me as a CEO and growing a business. I think we're also being a bit nice. I think we're all a bit scared to piss people off in the organisation. You know my view on this, right? And I also think that this risk and trust thing, it goes through not just people, but it goes through the technologies that we all represent here today as well, by the way. So this is inherent with everything we're talking about and not, disparate. So I think we're being, and I know you're going to argue with me on this, which is brilliant, so watch this. But I think we're being a bit nice. I think we're being a bit too accommodating. I think we're all a bit worried about people leaving because we're not giving them the flexibility. I think productivity dips when people work from home. I do. And I'm not based on any stats that I've pulled, by the way. I feel it. And I think that we are less inclined to have difficult discussions that we need to have for better business productivity. And I think if we spent more time looking at business productivity and doing good things rather than worrying about, are you okay? You've got the flexibility you want, and actually mopping stuff up, I think we'd be better businesses all around. By the way, this is really controversial, so if everyone hits me later on, I'm good. What do you think about that?
I hear this all the time, actually. So I'm collating a list of things that I've heard, and because I just find it interesting in the way that you can respond to some of these things. So I agree, people aren't having hard conversations in businesses. Totally agree. That's not because businesses have gone soft, and it's not because people have compassion and empathy at the heart of their businesses, because actually if they did, they would be having hard conversations. There are two different types of empathy in your brain. You have empathic distress and empathic compassion. Empathic distress is where you don't want to have a conversation because you're worried about how it's going to make you feel or how it's going to make the other person feel, and then that's going to make you feel bad. And that's basically, people get stuck there. It takes time to cultivate empathic compassion, which is actually action-based. So that enables the conversations to happen. So actually, I don't disagree with you at all that I think people aren't having the hard conversations. But what I'm saying is we can't say that the reason people aren't having hard conversations is because we're really displaying empathy and compassion in the heart of our business. We're not, basically. And that's because actually the leadership development and management development actually is one of the things that we don't focus on enough. I saw on the CMI report I mentioned earlier. It was only just been released actually about a month ago, I think. So look it up if you haven't. 82% of new managers that are coming into the workforce are accidental managers. So they're people who haven't had any management training or development at all. And then we're expecting these people to manage our teams and engage our teams and deliver productivity. And effectively, they're being set up. I mean, no wonder people don't want to go into management. They're being set up because we're not adequately engaging them. And that is the responsibility of leadership. That sits with the chief exec, it sits with the board, it sits with those people who are running the company. So it amuses me, because quite often I hear this and people go, well, in our organisation it's soft and people aren't having, and the responsibility for that sits with the people who are at the top of the tree, ultimately. So, but those conversations just don't happen. You might get some people who are very good at doing that naturally, but they don't happen by chance. You have to develop it. And it strikes me as crazy that we're in a situation where our most valuable asset, people say our people are our most, and yet we do as little development as we need to in that, and we don't equip people to have the hard conversations. So equipping people to have that. So I don't know whether any of you have come across Lencioni's dysfunctional team pyramid. Anyone here has come across that? Yeah. So the very bottom of the pyramid, and it's a pyramid for a reason, because these layers need to be there before the next layer can happen. The bottom of the pyramid is trust. And again, a word that's thrown around, whatever, but I'm talking about professional trust, which is very different to personal trust, which has to be evidenced. It has to be learned, it has to be shown, it has to be developed. And the next level up is to have hard conversations, to be able to have conflicting conversations. Results is at the very top of the pyramid. It's the last thing that comes when you've built these other layers. And so effectively, these things don't happen by chance. We have to look at them and see how we can get those to happen. So I think, business has gone soft. People aren't doing this. I hear these all the time. In fact, I'm capturing some of them I hear on the tube. I love listening to conversations on the tube now, because it's fascinating to hear some of the things that people say. But there's a lot of everyone's this, no one's this, it's all this, it's none of this, And actually what you've got to do is delve into that to go, what does that really mean, actually? And how do we do something about it? Because in any other area of your business, you would be doing something about it. So.
Brilliant. Aren't we funny? We're all very judgy, aren't we? Me included, by the way. So thank you. I will put a more reasonable hat on. You'll be pleased. So skills gap.
I'll hold her accountable to that, by the way.
She won't. We've got a few minutes left, but skills gap, right? So I've said before, I don't think we've got a skills gap. We've got an attitude gap. And I don't mean that as a people, employees. I mean that as employers. I think we're looking for people who will hit the spot straight away rather than actually spend time developing and looking at core competencies, because it's a bit harder. All right, well, life is hard, but no one's looking at it because quick, we've got to hit the targets, hit things. What's your view on the skills gap? Because the leadership piece is one where, we're assuming just because we do well at our job that we're going to become amazing managers and leaders and great, and somehow there's this God-given automatic learning that we have just because the title is bestowed upon us. So there's that. And then there's the what's coming in, either top or bottom. How do we generate that? And what are you seeing? And what's your viewpoint? Given that you mentioned it before, cybersecurity, most kids at school will go, don't know what it is. And how do we generate that? What do you see? And what do you think the solutions are?
I think we've got to stop looking for what we have. I think that's one of the first things. I think we look for what we know. So as human beings, we look for validation of what we know rather than what we don't know. So I think that's one of the first things. I think, and so it's a huge question. Is there anything singly at the bottom of that? So, I think it's showing, it's demonstrating different people in different careers. I think we need to look for different skills and be able to recognize that, and that's really difficult. I see this actually a really big challenge up at the C-level, is that lots of people, you have quite a diverse range of candidates usually coming up for C-level jobs or upper management jobs. But quite often people don't recognize certain things in other people. So it might look differently in other people and sound differently. And we've got to get better at spotting that, really. And then I think it's about listening. And I'm going to use the word, which is probably going to be a bit eye-rolly for everyone, but inclusive leadership. did quite a big behavioural study course at London School of Economics last year on it, and it was really interesting because I thought it was going to be about diversity. It isn't. It's about inclusive, being inclusive, creating inclusive places for people to work. And what does that mean? Just means where everyone can basically come and feel like they belong and they can do the best work. And so what we've got to do is basically tune into, I think, what the generations that are joining the workforce now want. What do they want? What are their motives? What are the things that they hold important? And we've got to create those cultures within our organizations, because actually quite often people look at diversity and they think, job done, basically. We've got a different range of people in now, and that's great. But actually, that's not even the starting point, really. So, and that, by the way, means I'm not just talking about different groups. I'm talking about just people who are quieter at work, people who don't speak up at meetings, people who are introverted, people who are more technical and actually like a little bit more time to think about things, and usually in a room with a bunch of people who love the sound of their own voice and and talk a lot. And it's how you basically pull out the things. And I think that's part of it, really, is just make them feel like they are welcome and belong in organizations so that they can be engaged. And engagement is something that you can't, if you have engaged workforce, you can't take that for granted. It's extraordinary. And no amount of money, when people come and offer it to people, they won't leave. I mean, we had people where they were offering twice their salary and didn't leave because actually they loved where they were. So I'm not saying money isn't the be-all end-all, but it's about the 16th on the list of things that are important to people. So we just have to get better at tapping into that and understanding what they are, I think. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's, yeah.
Well, I think we've established nothing is, but thank you. I think just to summarise very quickly, the reason why I call it Disruptor Day is because sometimes these topics need to come out because we all assume that we should know things and should be better. And by the way, this is also reflected in the fact that technology we talk about today hopefully will be more meaningful. It should be easy to get. Who cares what happens in the dev side and the back end of stuff, right? When you're talking to people and trying to get them to talk to their customers, or trying to engage people who've got real issues with their businesses from a security point of view, don't bullshit. Just be open and honest. And I think some of those things, inherently, we need to start looking at the leadership and everything else. So that's why the start of this conversation is very pertinent to the next tranche. But thank you, Annabelle.
Thank you
so much.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.